Now that you've found UBN Radio and discovered our quality talk shows, it's time to spread the word to friends, family, and the universe. 24 hours of music and talk. Radio without limits. That's why people keep coming back for more. That's ubnradio.com.
It's time for the Bonnie Sher Show, a whirlwind of wit, wisdom, celebrity, and the boomer life. With a little bit of this and a lot of that and so much more you don't want to miss, here's Bonnie!
Well, hello, and thanks for tuning in and stopping by and joining in the conversation. Thanks to Wayne Cobbin for my super duper hero theme song. I'm Bonnie Sher, and I will be your host today through the world of celebrity, through the great boomer generation, boom, and of course, the community of type 1 diabetics who meet here weekly. So welcome to you all. Today's guests, I'm thrilled to say I have a great show lined up for you today. Our first guest is writer, actor. Let's see, he's picked up 6 Emmys along the way. Of course, I'm talking about Bruce Vilanch. And our other guest, a member of the T1D community from right here in California, Roger Sparks. If you have a question or you have a comment, a nice one, please, feel free to call us at 323-843-2826. And you can follow us on Twitter, hashtag BSherRadio. That's BSHER Radio. So settle in and please help me welcome my first guest. I'm thrilled, Bruce Vilanch.
Yeah, it's strong. Hi there. Hello.
You would have worn different glasses had you known so many people.
I
were
did really.
be
Had I known, it's like the Hollywood Bowl. I mean, just
well, or the
gigantic.
Hollywood Squares. We sort of
Exactly, with them too.
Do you feel like at home?
Certainly.
Okay.
Well, we were in a building in Hollywood that used to be Columbia Pictures, and I had offices here. Every few years, I would be doing a show. Hollywood Square's office was actually in this building. It's exciting. We can't show any of it because we have 2 little cameras here, and one's on her, one's on me. So,
and wouldn't you
rather
have it that way?
imagine the place is surrounded by squares.
I'd love to. So I have one very important question for you, Bruce. What's new?
Oh, I was going to go for my standard answer with those questions. But what's new?
What's new, pussycat?
Well, I was in Connecticut all summer. I've written a musical with Petula Clark, all of her music. And it's a jukebox show. It's an original book with all of Petula's music. So think Mamma Mia. Please think Mamma Mia. And we did it at the Goodspeed Opera House, which is an incubator for musicals in Connecticut, and it was a big hit. And now we're going to take it to Broadway. They're deciding which path we're going to use, whether we're going to they're going to raise the money and bring
Is
it
that
in.
the Schoenberg path or the?
Well, there's the regional theater path where you partner with a place like the Amundsen here in L.A. or the Goodman in Chicago, and you mount a production and bring that one in. Or you can do it the old-fashioned way, which is the producers raise the money and mount a production and bring that one in. We'll go out of town and try out. But we're talking about the $15 million show. It's a big show.
Oh,
so.
It's a little show. Only 15 mil.
Well, that is little compared to
Yes, I know.
To what I mean, it's to put a one woman show on Broadway is worth your life. I mean, just
look at what they did with
nothing.
Lena Horne.
Well, yeah, but
remember that show?
I do. But that was a long time ago.
I know.
But
everything old is new again, even us.
But everything old is new again, but at 10 times the cost. Oh. So the revival of Cats costs 20 times what the original production of Cats cost, and it's the same cats. There are no new cats.
No new cats.
No, that's the same pussy from the old show.
She never heard that word before. She turned red.
God. Oh, you're in the right building for this.
Oh, yeah.
There used to be all these sitcoms in this building, and you go from floor to floor and hear people laughing. Mostly, it's stuff that would never get into the show. Never get on the air. But
And the other place to hear wonderful comedic banter was Nate and Al's for breakfast.
Well, yeah.
From around 7:30 a.m. to about 10.
Mm-hmm. That was when
Jay Burton and all the guys
that was when all
used
the
to hang.
employed writers were there.
Yes.
After 10, the unemployed writers would come in
Exactly.
to pick up the slack. Yeah, I don't know if that's that ritual still goes on. I haven't been there in a while. I don't know what that means.
I don't know anybody in there anymore.
Really?
The waitresses.
I bet the waitresses are
No,
still
the waitresses,
there. The
we know.
waitresses are like Mount Rushmore. I mean, they never move. They
moved when Mrs. Mendelssohn was still
exactly.
around.
Actually, the waitresses were funnier than most of the comedy writers. The waitresses really.
Where do you think they got their material?
That's what I would hear a joke and I would say, "Oh, I remember." Flo told that one. There was a Flo.
Yes, there was. Yes, there was. So, all right. So, do you want to tell me more about the show, or do you want to talk about your sex life, or do you want to talk about, I don't know. This is your time.
Wow, we'd have to have a bigger pod for my sex life.
There she goes again. That's two. I hope you guys are having fun out here, because in here it's sweet.
Right. No, whatever you want to talk about.
I want to know what kind of participation. So you're writing the show. Have you had anything to do with the music? Are you?
No,
it's all Petula.
It's all Petula. It's all of her stuff, and a producer had the idea and put it together, and he had a storyline which I thought was intriguing because it's set in 1965 about a girl in Columbus, Ohio, where I went to college back then, and she goes to New York and walks into the world of Mad Men, where she is totally objectified and has to struggle and do all the things that women did then. And by the end of the show, in like 1970, she is one of the early feminists. So it's about female empowerment. It's all of Petula's music, which is really theatrical stuff. When I used to hear it back in the day, I would say, "What show is that from?" Because it all sounded so theatery. And when I did a benefit with Petula, and I told her the idea and what I was doing, she said, "Well, thank God it's not about me." And I said, "Well, why?" She said, "I'm very boring." I said, "No, you're not boring." She said, "Bruce, I live in Switzerland." And so I said, "I take your point." But, she's not... she didn't have the kind of life Carole King or Gloria Estefan had, and they both have musicals about them that are on Broadway right now. But her life was not like that. So there isn't the inherent conflict that would make her a real story. But this, I think, like Mamma Mia, this music will apply itself to our story.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, it's great. I had a fabulous time doing it. It's Broadway is like it forever.
Would you like to act in it?
No, I didn't write a part for me in it. There really is nothing for me in it.
Can you talk to the writer?
I could.
Do you know him intimately?
I thought about that, but then I thought, I don't know. I just, then you get conflicted. I mean, because you're writing for yourself, and it's hard to be objective. And I mean, look, it never got in Noel Coward's way. I understand that, but I just didn't feel comfortable doing it. I am writing something actually now that I could play.
Oh, sure.
So
now he tells us.
Now I'm doing it, but I'm still writing it, so it's not like this. This was to measure. So, but it's got a great part for a lady star, and we're talking to some. But what happens when you do a star vehicle is you better have a star. You've created a vehicle,
right? And
if you don't have a star, you may not have a show. So it's a dual-sided sword because you
only because there aren't any more sides available.
Well, it's just I mean,
Sure.
When they did the producers and Nathan and Matthew left, they had a real problem because the box office began dropping because they had told people that you had to come see these two stars in this fabulous show. Then they had to recalibrate and say you have to come see this fabulous show. So when you're in the planning stages, you think, don't we want the show to be the star? On the other hand, if the only way you can get it done is to make a vehicle out of it, and you have a star who will give you a year so you can pay it off, you kind of go for it, like Hugh Jackman in The Boy from Oz. But that was, a show about Peter Allen, and you had to find somebody who wanted to play Peter Allen.
That was, yes.
So, and in Australia, there were plenty of people, because in Australia he's a god, but not so much in America. And I worked on it because I wrote all of Peter Allen's shows with him.
You did?
Yeah. Oh, I've been around. Girl, I've been around. That's one of his songs. I can really show you around.
You're looking at a total Peter Allen fan.
Yeah. He was incredible. He was a phenomenal performer.
I could listen to him. I remember going to see him and just I do this. If I'm really into it, my mouth will just fall open.
Yeah, he was really amazing. And he really was. He was, unfortunately, he didn't have a lot of his own hits. He was like Laura Nyro. He wrote hits for other people, and he had an insane cult following. But as they're both gone, and you don't hear much about them anymore because they didn't have hits that were attached to them that
Right.
You can point at and say that was his. So it's unfortunate because the legacy is incredible. I mean, not just the work, but when you look at any of the performance stuff that he did, he was phenomenal.
That whole period of time, a lot of people laughed through the idea of disco and
Right.
I was laughing, but I was dancing,
Yeah.
Of course, I was younger then. And don't do that. Yeah, isn't that amazing? But inside, do you feel any different? I mean, I don't feel like I did when I was 16 and stupid. But
No, well,
I don't
you
feel.
acquire some wisdom along the way, or at least.
But I mean,
yeah,
I
at
wonder
least
when
a crust.
people look at me, they say, "Oh, she's an old lady." I mean, and I'm not. This is not fishing for compliments. This is, I can't even figure out why they would even think that way. But we all do it. Some more graceful.
Well, you put yourself in their place. I mean, I remember when I was a kid thinking 30 was middle-aged, but I was like 14 and I knew everything. So I think that to some people, I mean, it's shocking when you discover that you're not putting out the vibe that you think you're putting out.
Oh,
but then
maybe that's what it is.
But there are some people who, I mean, they're just too young. I mean, you're not fooling them because they're surrounded by people their own age. So, eventually you say, "Oh my God, I'm mutton passing for lamb." But as long as they eat you anyway, it doesn't matter.
There she goes. Okay, now you got her.
I'm keeping her happy. That's all it is.
That's a very nice thing that you do for people. That's a very nice thing.
Yes,
What's your favorite thing to do work-wise?
I think performing. I mean, I like it both, but performing, you get a rush out of doing it. I did Hairspray for 2 years. I played Edna Turnblad. I ironed my way across America for a year, and then I did it on Broadway for a year. And I had an incredible time. It was just phenomenal. And being on Hollywood Squares was terrific. So I like being out there. The kind of writing I do is a lot collaborative. So I'm in a room with other people a lot of the time. But eventually, every writer knows that you sit down at some point and you face what used to be the blank page and what is now the blank screen, and you actually have to come up with it. And so it's lonely. But when you get into what I call the alpha state, which is where you've everything else is zoned out and you're just in that place where you're with the material. It's just you. That's quite exhilarating. And when you get done doing it, it's a wonderful feeling. But it is a lonely feeling, and no one's applauding from across the room because you wrote something wonderful. It's I suppose since there must be some kind of gene or learned behavior that you crave acceptance. And
sure, love me.
On the other hand, I'm very happy that I can say no to things now where I know I wouldn't go over. I just know. I mean, I was offered, they said, "We'd like you to come and do 10 minutes on a show in Rosemont, Illinois," which is outside Chicago. And it's a tribute to the troops. And I thought, I don't have anything to tell the troops. I mean, I have a regard for the troops, but it's like, that will not be my audience. That audience, they're not going to be interested in anything I have to tell them. Not that day, not at that show. I mean, they might, dig me someplace else, but not in that room. I just said, no, I just kind of know better. That's the opposite of approval is what you get from those audiences. So.
Severely, I know that one.
It's something that you learn as you go along. And if you don't, you learn it fast, sooner or later.
I think one of the great things is that we have the ability to continue to learn. And you see this. I mean, I know people who don't have a clue. They go on with the same thing day after day, and there's no change.
Right, yeah.
And that would just drive me crazy.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Because to feel that everything is so stagnant that it can't be changed, even what's happening in our political theater right now, and that's all I can call it, is a theater of the absurd.
Yeah.
I mean, this is like every don't I was ever taught.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well,
and
the shock was that there are so many stupid people. We knew they were there, but we didn't know they were there in the numbers.
They were hidden stupid people.
They were hidden stupid people.
It's almost, and then when I heard the count last night on the vote whether or not to keep Pelosi in, it was not a sweep. I mean, yes, she pulled the 2/3, but the people that were asked how they were going to vote, apparently there were quite a number who said yes, they would be voting with her or for her, and then clearly didn't and went for a young congressman who's been around for 27 minutes. But I mean, I still have a problem even believing this is really real.
Well,
and all I know. And I don't, everybody, I've been hearing a lot about, well, get involved. I don't know what good it can do to try and get a recount. If that's going to be the way, I don't think these waters have ever been tested.
I don't see that happening.
I don't see it either.
I don't really. I mean, Hillary wasn't even behind it. And then when Jill Stein stepped in, she said, okay, well, let's try in this one state and see what happens. And they handed him Michigan anyway. He legitimately did not lost Michigan. I mean, she's really just finding out what she always knew, which was that those Rust Belt states had turned against her, turned against the Democrats because they're all in trouble because heavy industry left town. And nobody's come to replace him. And the guy comes in and says, hey, I'm going to shake things up. And that's all you hear from people who voted for him. Well, he'll shake things up.
Yeah, he certainly will.
So you can't argue with that. I mean, stupid is stupid. It's just it's incredible that so many people vote against their own self-interest. But they're not bright. So, I mean, what are you going to do? It's
Well, Trump figured out what to do. He's going to go take a couple victory laps over this.
Of course. But, they also, she was a flawed candidate. I mean, she got the popular vote, but she didn't get it where she needed it. And she should have won in a landslide. I mean, that's the ugly truth. But they had so much on her that they just kept hammering away with, even whether it was true, what wasn't true. They just, I mean, they just they're the Clintons are the opposite of Teflon. Everything sticks to them. And that was, part of the problem. I mean, she was the wrong one to go with. And if they've learned anything, it's that there shouldn't be a presumptive nominee. There shouldn't be somebody who clears the field of everybody else with money and with relentless pursuit of stuff. That doesn't mean they're the right person. And I voted for her. So this is not sour grapes. I voted for her. She was it. But there was a lot of no confidence going on. I couldn't pretend she was what she wasn't.
Right.
Anyway, and I voted for her, so I was not one of the people who ran behind Bernie and who ran behind Mr. What is Aleppo and ran, that was not me. I voted for her.
Yeah, I did too. Well, before we have to end, I'd like to ask you, how can people follow you? No, I don't mean they're going to get creepy.
There's a website called WeGotBruce.com. which
Is that like We've Got Annie?
yeah.
Da, da, da. Yeah.
It's from the movie Get Bruce, which
Yeah,
was
yeah,
made
yeah.
about me, and it was a documentary made in '99 about me. And so this guy, a friend of mine in Nashville, started a website called We Got Bruce, and he maintains it. And you can, and I say after Get Bruce will be the sequel, Had Bruce, which is with a much larger cast. So that's probably the best way.
Yeah, because you're all friended up on Facebook.
Well, you know.
You 5,000 person mark.
They called
And
my
do you
herd.
know-
I had no idea.
Yeah, I have no idea. There are people I have friends. Hi.
I know. What can I say?
But we can definitely follow you. I learned that your page is
Oh, you
open
can.
to anybody who wants to
Oh,
look
that's true.
and see you there. Are you a tweeter?
No, I twat not.
Je ne tweet pas?
Nope.
twatting.
I have a tweet, but I never use it. I don't know anybody who does except Donald Trump and Cher. They're the only people I know who actually tweet by themselves. With no.
I'm so embarrassed.
Oh, I guess I'm Bonnie Cher. Cher and Cher alike.
Gee. Except it's a long story.
But,
Bruce, thank you.
My
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Thank you.
Come back and play some more.
there they are. We wonder. I thought you'd gone out for a vape.
Now I have to remember what I was going to say.
Well,
but
you were
luckily
going
I
to throw it
don't.
to the sponsor. No sponsor.
I would like to throw it to a sponsor.
I
You have
see.
no idea how much
okay.
I would like to be able to throw this to a sponsor. But in the meantime, you're listening to the Bonnie Sher Show. Come on, join the conversation. Call us at 323-843-2826. That was for you, Steve Bluestein, but you didn't call. Or you can follow us on Twitter at hashtag BShareRadio. Coming up, a shout out from my soapbox. But first, we're going to play a little tape that I found so endearing. It's there's a tune attached to it called Over the Rainbow, which sometimes is just what I need to listen to. I know as a young singer, it's the first song I ever learned, because who didn't want to sound like and be like Judy Garland? And if there's anybody else that I would ever even think about listening to singing this song, it would be its lyricist, Yip Harburg. So take us over to Mr. Harburg and Over the Rainbow, please.
I belong to a special tribe of what used to be called troubadours. Sometimes they were called minstrels. Now we're called songwriters. We worked for, in our songs, a sort of a better world, a rainbow world. Now, my generation, unfortunately, never succeeded in creating that rainbow world, so we can't hand it down to you. But we could hand down our songs, which still hang on to hope and laughter, so that in times of confusion like these, when all the world is a hopeless jumble and the raindrops tumble all around, heaven opens a magic lane. When purple clouds darken up the skyway, there's a lovely highway to be found, leading from your window pane to a spot behind the sun, just a step beyond the rain. Somewhere over the rainbow, way up high, there's a land that I heard of once in a lullaby. Somewhere over the rainbow, skies are blue, and the dreams that you dare to dream really do come true. Someday I'll wish upon a star and wake up where the clouds are far behind me, where troubles melt like lemon drops away above the chimney tops. That's where you'll find me, somewhere over the rainbow. Bluebirds fly, birds fly over that rainbow. Why then, oh why can't I? If any little bird can fly beyond the rainbow, why, oh why can't I?
Welcome back to the Bonnie Sher Show. Joining me in this segment is Roger Sparks, a member of the T1D community from right here in California. So hello, Roger. Welcome back.
Well, hello, Bonnie. It's nice to see you again.
Well, you know, you blow my mind, I must say. What I'm going to ask you to do for the people who've been watching all the way along will probably already recognize Roger. This is his third appearance here on the show now. I refer to him as our million islet cell man. He hates when I do it, but it's just too bad it's my show. Because why do I call him that, you might ask? The reason is quite simple. On January the 1st of 2016, Roger went to the City of Hope and had 400,000 islet cells implanted, and that was then followed up 3 months later with implantation of another 600,000 cells. Roger now sits here with us, a self-proclaimed diabetic T1 still, but still in all with no need for insulin. So the first thing I want to do is, for those who don't know the whole story, I'd like to take this story back to a year ago today. It's December 1st, 2015. You already know that you're in line and you're waiting for these cells to be marked. We're Roger's cells now. What's going through your mind right then?
Well, you know, at that stage, it's unknown. You know, you're excited. You're wondering when it's going to happen because you never really know when the cells are going to be available. They put you on a transplant waiting list, and you're essentially waiting for a pancreas to be available, and you don't know when it's going to happen. So you sort of have this pent-up feeling of what's going to happen and when it's going to happen. You don't really know. They give you a good idea about what's going to happen, but it's
when you say
not
they
even
give
close.
you an idea of, okay, we're going to get to that. But when you say an idea of what's going to happen, what's going to happen in terms of drug therapies, what's going to happen in terms of how much can they really tell you, or is that really the function of the study, is to find these things out?
Yeah, well, they can give you the parameters. They can tell you, you know, you're going to be taking immunosuppressant drugs after you do it. They can tell you that the procedure is going to be 2 or 3 hours. They can tell you what life is probably going to be like after, but they can't really promise you that.
So what did they tell you?
Well, they told me that, number one, keep my expectations low.
Oh, that's easy.
Okay, yeah, exactly. After being a type 1 diabetic for 35 years, low expectations sometimes are easier. They told me that I would probably get to the point where I wouldn't have to deal with hypoglycemia anymore, which was a huge, huge issue for me. They did not promise me insulin independence. They said I may have reduced insulin. I may have, and they didn't know how much or how little. And basically, you sort of understand that what you are is a test tube. And they're kind of throwing stuff into you, and then they're going to wait and see what's going to happen. And it's exciting. It's particularly exciting because you know this as well as anyone. When you're a type 1 diabetic, you've been told every 5 years is going to be a cure. And you think, yeah, right, okay, another 5 years. So 35 years of that. And finally, it's an opportunity to really be part of what's happening. So I was really, really excited.
Which leads me to my next question. What made you want to do this? I mean, other than the obvious, I mean, there's a big step because I can't think of any type 1 who goes, nah, I'm happy with this, just the way it is. Nah, I don't need it. I'm good. I mean,
well, part of what qualified me for it was I was developing as time went on more and more complications from diabetes, and particularly low blood sugars. My hypoglycemia was getting worse. It was getting more often. I'd lost the ability to detect when I was going to have a low blood sugar. As a matter of fact, 2 weeks before the transplant, I woke up in the middle of the floor at 4 o'clock in the morning. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know where I was. Had blood all over me, blood all over the floor because I'd been beating my face, apparently. I literally didn't know who I was. Now, as a type 1, you know, you sort of go into automatic mode at those points in time.
Sure.
I tried to stand up. My legs wouldn't support me. I fell into the chest of drawers. I crawled across the floor into the kitchen, opened the refrigerator, felt for all automatic because I still didn't know who I was.
Sure.
And they told me I was probably going to not have to deal with that anymore. And the promise of that by itself was more than I could really imagine.
So how did you start the process? Let's say one of our listeners says, all right, yeah, I can devote, I mean, there's obviously a commitment of time involved. It's,
Right.
You know, we haven't even gotten into that yet and how it affects your day to day. But so if somebody wanted to explore the possibilities, now clearly it's not only City of Hope that deals in this type of transplantation. It goes on around the country. But from your point of view, Roger, what were your steps? When was that moment that you said, you know, this one's for me?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I had been following what's called the Edmonton Protocol, which was the transplantation of islets, for a long time. And I actually knew that the City of Hope was doing these transplants, but I didn't really know a whole lot about them. I went to their website and I watched a video from the chair of endocrinology there, Dr. Ken Deal. And he said in no uncertain terms, his objective was to cure diabetes in his lifetime. And when I heard that and I saw some of the results that they were getting, I said, I want to be part of it. I just want to be part of it. So I picked up a telephone and called him. And I said, I hear you got a transplant program going on. How do I get in? What do I do? And from the moment that I started talking to them, they were incredibly responsive. They got back to me. They pulled me in for an interview. They had me fill out some paperwork. They started doing physical tests because what they want to make sure of, you're going to be on immunosuppressant drugs. They want to make sure you don't have a cancer someplace in your body or some other complication that's going to be complicated by the medication you have to take. Right. And it took about 5 months of tests and medical tests. And I remember the day they came to me and they said, you're going on the wait list next week, so get ready. And it was probably the turning point of my life at this stage in time.
Amazing.
And I got called 2 weeks later, actually 10 days later. for the transplant, which is unheard of. Normally it's several months to wait for a pancreas to become available for whatever reason.
You were
I
the
got
right
one.
match.
So on New Year's Eve, I got a call and said,
And I just talked about boring New Year's Eves, right?
Exactly. Well, this was not a boring New
Yeah,
Year's
no, I
Eve. Right.
fundamentally no.
I'd gained about 5 pounds at Christmas time, and I was afraid that was going to put me over the weight limit for this.
For the weight class?
Yeah, exactly. So I was there at 5 o'clock in the morning on January 1st, and it's been the most remarkable year that, there's really no way to describe what the last year has been like.
Try.
Well, I'm insulin free now. I don't take a drop of insulin after 35 years of being hooked up to an insulin pump, worrying about low blood sugars, worrying about high blood sugars, counting carbohydrates,
Worrying.
doing all of the stuff that goes along with it. So I don't take a drop of insulin now. I eat what I want to eat, although I still eat very well. My blood sugar has been rock solid steady since my second transplant. It's like I'm not diabetic anymore. I'm afraid you're going to drum me out of the club. Actually,
Did it show in my
Yeah,
eyes? Could
exactly,
you see that?
Exactly.
And he's smart too.
Right.
You heard it here.
When have been a type 1 for 35 years, you're always a type 1. But right now, I'm behaving as if
Is that like
I've
being
never
a type
had
1 in
diabetic.
drag?
Yeah, well, maybe. It's not a bad way to look at it.
I can't even imagine.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
Okay, now we have to look at the other side of this, or we don't have to, but I'm gonna. I've read, and we both know of people who have had similar procedures, and for one reason or the other, they are not successful.
Right.
Is there any reason? I'm putting it this way. Let's say you've already had a transplantation. It's not successful. I don't mean in terms of yours. That was a very short study. It was only 3.5 months from the first one.
Actually, it was 6 months. It was.
It was?
Yeah, it was.
I got confused.
January 1st and June 16th.
Right, because you were here on the end of March.
Right.
That's when we
Right.
first saw you. Can it be done again?
Part of getting in the clinical trial is they commit to up to 3 transplants because they don't know how many you're going to need to get to insulin independence. I got there in 2.
Okay, so there you are as of that date. So I don't want to paint a future picture, but anybody in this position, okay, you're going along jaunty jolly, you're insulin free, you're feeling well, something happens. And either something happens.
You deal with it.
Can they do another transplant?
Sure.
So there's nothing to stop that. Once it's happened, there's no reason it can't be done again.
There's a slight level of potential complication with a second and a third transplant. If you think about the fact I have 2 human beings' islets inside me right now.
Sure.
that are.
Do they get along?
And they get along. Luckily, they get along really well.
In my family, they would have got
but there's a chance they won't. Okay, so
I never even thought about
if
that.
you have a third one, the chance of them not getting along are better, or less, I guess is a better way to say it. So there's always risks and there's always things that you think about. But the bottom line is, this is the most life-changing experience one can have. And at the same time, you're participating in something that is moving toward a cure. And I'm an example now. I talk to diabetics all the time now, and people that are having all the same problems that I had, and I can be an example right now. They can look at me and say, what a difference this made in your life. we can hope that that's going to happen in our lifetime, and maybe we'll just jump into this clinical trial and be part of it also. City of Hope is still recruiting for the clinical trial, and it's islets at coh.org. And if you send them an email and you think it's something that you want to get involved in, they'll get back to you, and I just encourage you to participate in this incredible experience.
Boy, wouldn't I love that? Could you sign mine and say, "Look, I know her. She'll really do everything she's." But you know me too well. I don't.
I do know you well. Right.
I know that exercise. Oh no! Well, we can talk about exercise in a minute. Here's what I want to know about complications. After X amount of years, they kind of come along with the project. What have you heard of cases where, because of prior damage done to the body, where new complications might arise after a transplant?
I do not know about that. What I know is the complications that I had some neuropathy in my eyes. I just had an eye checkup, and my ophthalmologist said, "Your eyes are totally clear. There's nothing showing there anymore."
Fabulous.
So my feeling is my body is in the process of healing itself. Now, is that true? I just don't know.
Could you rub some of that on me?
I'll rub it off on you right now.
What a guy. Because to me, that would be, obviously not having to take insulin is a biggie.
Right.
But I think also for those of us who have been living with type 1 for a long period of time, that the complications kind of take on a life of themselves.
They do.
And then they require treatment, and you have to be careful that you're not confusing your treatment, because one thing will push those glucose numbers right up, another thing will drop it down, and that's just to try and make sure your heart pumps.
Right.
It's
yeah.
So that would give me hope.
Right.
That's my city of hope, that this isn't all there is for me.
Right. Well,
that I can continue, and so who knows?
The whole purpose of all of these clinical trials, there's a variety of clinical trials going on. They're all doing something slightly differently.
Mm-hmm.
All of them are going to benefit all of us eventually. Okay? Question is, when is eventually, right?
I've given up on when. I just want to know that it can be. The when.
Well, look right here, Bonnie. It can be.
Oh, he's make me cry. I really am very excited for what's happened to you and for you, Roger. And we only have another couple of minutes before I need to say goodbye to you for now. So would you please tell our audience how they may follow you, how they can find out? I know that you've been writing blogs about your experience. Tell them, please.
Yeah, the easiest way is just Google Roger Islets.
Roger Islets.
Islets. And you'll find my blog. On the blog, you'll find, if you want to follow me on Twitter, if you want to follow me on Facebook, it's Roger D. Sparks on both of them. I try to post a couple of times a month to keep everybody up to date. So far, it's been all good news, and hopefully it'll stay that way for a while. But by all means, if you're even remotely thinking about doing something like this, now's the time to do it. Get involved. I don't care how old you are. I don't care where you are. Get involved.
Well, Roger, I'm behind you 1,000%. And thank you once again
My
for
pleasure.
coming in and sharing some hope for a change. I mean, it gets a little depressing around here.
Thank you, Bonnie.
There are miracles out there, and I'm certainly one for believing in miracles. Listen, if there are any T1Ds out there who would like to occupy this chair of my dedicated T1 co-host, it's very simple. Just write me. Write me at BonnieSher.com. You can hit me up on Facebook. Hit me up. Who wants to be hit? I never liked that. You can write to me on Facebook. You can probably write to me on Twitter too, but let me know. Because otherwise I'm going to have to find you, and I will. So please, let me know you'd like to be my co-host, and that's what we're going to do. I really do hate to end this segment, but it is time for my soapbox. First of all, I want to give a shout out to a writer named Mike Hoskins, who writes for Diabetes Mine. He did a great job with his coverage of the first ever insulin pricing roundtable. There is a new group has come together known as the NDVLC, the National Diabetes Volunteer Leadership Council. And what they came together for was to explore the human cost of unaffordable insulin prices. Then they heard the insulin makers' response and followed the money to see exactly where the problem was. And what came up, first of all, it seemed that the pharmacy benefit managers were greatly responsible to the increase in the price of insulin in the United States. Nowhere in the world are they paying for insulin what we're paying for it here. So they convened what they called the inaugural Access to Insulin Roundtable, bringing together about 24 diabetes advocates, many different advocacy groups, as well as executives from the big three insulin manufacturers, Lilly, Novo Nordisk, and Sanofi. I suggest you take a look at this story. You can find it on Diabetes Mine. Again, the author, Mike Hoskins. Read it. It's a fascinating piece. Next, my shout down. I'm really in a quandary. I keep wanting to believe that everything that I'm hearing on the news is not true. I've been thinking this way for months now, and yet it does seem to be true. And now that our president in waiting has started to name his cabinet officials, as well as the people who he thinks that he should have close to him, which starts with the white nationalist Steve Bannon as his chief strategist, billionaire anti-public education crusader Betsy DeVos as his secretary of education, a birther and staunch Obamacare opponent, Tom Price, really? At Health and Human Services, and of course a bona fide racist, any way you look at it, would be Jeff Sessions as his attorney general pick. What about draining the swamp? This is not a draining of the swamp. This is a repositioning of the monsters in the swamp. And it scares the shit out of me. If you have an opinion, write me, blog me, tell me, visit my blog at BonnieSher.com/blog and sound off. I dare you. Well, that's our show for today. I hope you'll return next week for another 50 minutes of celebrity, of wonderful lives of boomers, what they're all about, and of course my very near and dear T1 community. Until then, please follow the number one, Bonnie Sher, on Twitter. And if you would be so kind, go ahead and like the Bonnie Sings Lena page on Facebook, which is where this program streams live. Again, I want to thank today's guests for coming along and thank all of you for sharing the ride. Quick note of thanks to Corey Bone for outfitting me with this necklace, which has now gotten all caught up, but it's really beautiful, and you're probably seeing a picture of it now. This is all hand-tied, 14-karat gold, with teeny tiny little multi-gem pieces all around it and throw. It's a layering piece. I wear this, and I thank Corey in exchange for promotional consideration. You can visit him online on my website, or you can find them at Crown and Anchor Jewelry on Twitter. So that's about my Corey. Now, for my friends old and new, most of you already know the enormous role that Sammy Davis Jr. had in my life. He was my mentor, and he was my friend. And so, in the fashion of Carol Burnett, I'm going to wink and send a smile to you, Sammy. Take it away till next week.